Greetings and welcome to week 5 of Concepts of Computing. This week's lessons, Google Forms. So this week's going to be fairly short for lessons because you do have your midterm later this week. But we'll go over Google Forms. It's one of the quicker and easier ones to learn to use, at least the basics. So we'll go over that real quick and then you'll have time to study for your midterm and do the review for the midterm. But Google Forms. What is Google Forms? They allow you to create surveys, quizzes, many other different things if you want to be creative about it. But what we're going to go over is we're going to go over the different question types, the different ways to share it, email it, link it, embed it, add collaborators, which will be important for later lessons. We'll explore the response summary and then also what it looks like in a spreadsheet. And then adding a shared form to your drive, and then showing off what you learned. So you're going to do your midterm. That's what the last one says, obviously. But for this unit, you're going to do the basics of creating and sharing a Google form. There's more research we're going to do, and you will eventually later on create a more complex form. But for this, your success criteria is being able to actually share it correctly and then create and develop a simple survey, right? You're just going to do a real simple survey. That's what you're going to be, your success criteria for this lesson. But you do need to understand all this because you will be able to have to do more. So again, you might have to do Google researching. There is a lot more activities for this lesson. But again, what you're going to turn in is a simple form. So you're not going to spend a lot of time creating the form, but again, hopefully you get enough to understand how it works. So when you do need to create a more complex form, you'll be able to do that. All right, so review from last week. We went over the computers, went over the functions, how they had memory, the software, the hardware, how the software talked to the hardware, the concepts input, storage, processing, output, and then the actual parts of the computer that actually did this. So the CPU was the big processing part of the hard drive, and RAM did the storage for you. And then your inputs were like your keyboards, the USBs, and your output was normally the screen or speakers. External parts are a lot of times similar to internal parts. You can have an internal hard drive and external hard drive. So again, that's kind of what we went over last week. So with that, we're going to go to Google Forms. We'll talk about kind of what we're looking at, and then we'll actually go back to our good old demo time. So what's a survey? How do you set up as a quiz? How do you share and collaborate? What does both those means? Because collaborate is different than sharing. Different question types, multiple guess, short answer, and then dot, dot. There's a lot of different little things you can do. And then how you view the responses. So those are the big key pieces for that. So there is no link to go to this demo time. You're just going to create a new form and follow along so we get it from the bottom up. So demo time is, make sure you have Google Drive open. Again, if you need a pause to catch up. So to create a Google form, you find your tutorial folder and then click New, Google Form. It will automatically pop this up. And we're going to go over, like we said in all of the requirements, we're going to go over all these different pieces. I will kind of go through mostly the questions at first, and then we're going to go through the options, and then some of the things that you can change, what they do and how they work. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and give this a name. It's just going to be a little test form. So you can do a lot of stuff. You can do a text here. First, we'll just call this my test quiz. It'll eventually be a quiz. That's why I'm calling it the quiz. You can call it whatever you want if you're following along. But this is just going to be a test quiz. You can make this into surveys. You can make these into all kinds of different things. And we'll talk about some cool things I've seen students do with these as well. But for now, we have a name. You can have your bold, italicize, put a link in there, which will be useful for a project in the future where you can link to a video if it's not on YouTube or anything else. You need some articles or something for whatever you're trying to do.
and then you can remove the formatting. If you want to give it a description, don't always need this. What's it about? So maybe some direction, something like that. But there you go. Now, we should have seen this on Google Docs as well. Whatever is here, like in Google Docs, whatever is the first sentence, when you click up here, it'll automatically give that as the name. So we got test quiz. Now, before we start adding questions and going over, let's first go over the options. So you'll see there's like a little toolbar over here. And like a lot of things, if you hover over it, it will tell you what it is. So you want to add a question. You can import questions. I've never used that, but grab from another test. Add a title and description. I'll show you what a lot of these look like in a second. If you want to add an image, so you can ask questions about the image, or again, survey, whatever you want. Or you can, talk about some ideas in a second as well. And then video. Now this is generally YouTube, right? You need to actually have a link to a YouTube video and insert it. So if you wanted to show a video, and then this is one of the assignments that's in this class, you'll have a video there, and then it will go ahead and ask questions about that video. Like you're making your own little lesson that they're going to go ahead. So that's one example. Or you just want to put a video in here if you're making a survey or something. But again, there's a video. Now, if you don't have YouTube, as I mentioned, you can put a link to the video using this in any spot that makes sense. Click here to view video, put it in Google Drive, share the Drive folder correctly, which we've gone over before, and then so on and so forth. And then finally add section. And again, we'll show you most of this as we're going through, but you can see you have all these options here. Now, each of the questions, as you can see, has some of its own options, and then depending on what you're going to use, we'll also have more options as well. So let's just go ahead and show you something, because the first thing we're going to ask them for is their name. Now notice it was multiple choice and now a short answer, which makes sense, right? If someone's going to type their name, you're not going to give them options because that's a lot of names you'd have to type in the list. Now you can duplicate this question, you can delete it. I'm going to make it required because I need to know the name, and then there's a couple other options as well, which are more advanced. We won't go into all that much. And then here's a kicker to how this works. Whatever you are selected, so you see that blue line, when you click on any of these, it will go below it, right? So if I click on it here, now this question is above name. Now, if you do that, you can delete it, or you can just drag it below it by grabbing right there. All right, so now you have it in the right order. But again, so if I wanted it under name, I could click it and it would go under name. But I already have one here, so let's go ahead. You'll see it's, again, like it was defaulted to multiple choice. So we are going to ask them for what their favorite movie is. Now, it's multiple choice, so really we're going to word it, so which of these is your favorite movie? Like, which do you like the most of these? So, and again, we'll kind of talk about that when we get to responses, because again, like name, if you just let them type in whatever they want, you go to responses, I mean, how many movies are out there? You're going to just, your bar chart or whatever you're looking at, pie chart's going to be just a ton of different things, because spelling, capitalization generally is different when you're doing this. So, which of these do you like the best? All right, now I'm just going to, you can put whatever type of quiz you want in here. Again, I'm going to put movies, but I'm not going to really put movies, so movie 1. And then to add another option, you can just click here, or as I can't see it, but I click enter, it also moved to the next one, so movie 2, or add option, movie 3. Now, if you want them to be able to type in, and again, I don't recommend this depending on what you're trying to do, you can click add other, and this will let them type any movie they want. But if you do that, as I mentioned, we'll see in responses, your bar graph is going to look kind of weird. So if you ever don't like any of these, you can click remove. Alright, I'm going to go to make this required, and now I have 2 questions right here, and I want to change to a different topic. And how we can do this is make it its own section. So remember I said, hey, you got all these things over here. Well, there's this add section. Now you may or may not have seen this in quizzes you've taken before or things like this, and we'll see this when we actually run it. You'll notice that this section right here will be its own page, and then you'll click next. Now there's a lot you can do with this at this point, because you can pick based on this, go to this section. I've seen, and this is where I said some good examples, I've seen students use this for an ordering system. I mean, they've updated since then, but it allowed them to be like, all right, do you want food or drink? So if you click food, it'll take you to the food section. If you click drink, it'll take you to the drink section. And then you can order what you're trying to get, and then head to the system like, okay, move next, or however they want to do it. So there is a lot of interesting stuff that you can do by adding the sections. I've even seen scavenger hunts, like you have to type in the right thing before it takes you to the next clue. But for now, right, we have section 2. I'm going to call this the food section, and you'll see why in a second. But you can call it whatever you want, just follow along with the basic premise. Again, I'm not going to, you can probably figure if I add an image, it'll go under there, video, it'll go under there. Same concept, you know, if you click here, wherever it will go under it. Now, what I'm going to do, and I don't necessarily need this because I could just write a description here, is I could also add a title and description and give more information. And I've seen this used for multiple questions. So you're like, hey, here's the scenario, you know, Johnny did this, blah, 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 blah. And then you ask questions, okay, how did Johnny do this? And then another question about the thing. So that's going to go in there. I'm going to delete this. I don't need it because it kind of has its own title anyway. So the sections generally have their own titles. But if you needed to just, if I wanted to put one here, right, I could add a title and description and kind of make it so it stays on the same page. I doesn't need to go to another one, but I'm able to put information in there. Or as I mentioned, it's a great thing. Like I'm going to group some questions together. Here's some information about it. Like a lot of these are about the movie, the videos, the images. That's nice where you can just kind of plug it in there, and then you can have a few questions about it. But for now, again, if I want to add a question down here, I need to click on here, add new question, and I'm gonna word this carefully because I kind of want this to be a you can check more than one option. So you can see there are short answer, paragraph answers, multiple choice, which we've already seen before, and then check boxes. Drop down is kind of like multiple choice. It's just a drop down. You can upload a file for them to download and check out for whatever reason. You can, hey, open this Word document to look at it first, or here's some information about a product. Never really used most of these, but then date and time are like those pop-up boxes. So you can put date there. They can then like click on it and then select a very specific date. But I'm gonna see. I want check boxes here. So I'm gonna see if I can word this correctly. Which of these foods do you like? Question mark. And look at that. So the way I worded it made it get check boxes. Where, you know, up here, right, the way I wrote it, which of these do you like best, implies that there's going to be one, but the way I worded this one implies that there could be multiple. So you can see there's multiple. So let's go ahead and do, let's see, candy, enter cake, enter pizza, enter carrots. Okay, so, and again, you could also click the add options. But now they can check all of them out. They can pick none of them, they can pick all of them, whereas stuff like this, you have to pick one of them. So again, this is interesting. Now, right now, this is just a survey, right? Which really, at the end of the day, it is a survey. But we'll turn into a quiz. It won't make a lot of sense, but I'm going to show you how to make a quiz because that is also part of one of the other assignments you'll do, and if you're trying to figure out a quiz. All right. There's a couple things we need to do. Now, we'll have no responses, so we'll talk about this in a second. And we'll talk about settings in a second as well. This is, I guess, not super new, but since the last time I taught this, it's actually new. So you used to just be able to click on preview, but as you can see, it's not accepting responses and match published sentence. So big thing right there is the not published, right? But you can see what it looks like already, right? You can kind of see what it looks like. So in this case, and this might actually be new even since the last time I taught it, because last time I think it didn't even get me here, and that's something to think. So everything's, they might change, right? So I'm giving you kind of tools and showing you where stuff are. The basic premise hasn't really changed, but things might, you might have to publish it first to do stuff. But you can see, this is what I meant by section 1, right? Here's section 1. You only see section 1. Now it's required, so in order to go to the next one, you have to give a name, pick a movie, and then you click next. And then again, it goes to section 2, and I can go ahead and pick whatever. Now I cannot submit this because it's not published, but you can see, at least in preview mode, I think like 6 months ago this wasn't working for me, but that's what it actually looks like. So I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna be there. Because it open a new tab. So with that, you can clearly see that we have the 2 sections and how that works, right? So I can add more sections if I wanted to. For the actual usage, they'll just keep going down and down and down as you add these throughout this. So now I'm actually going to publish this, all right? And then what this allows me to do with anyone with a link can go ahead and deal with this. So I'll leave it like that. I'm going to click publish. And now when I click preview, it's published. You don't see the warning. I can type in my name. I can pick my movie and click next. I can say I like cake, candy, and pizza, but I don't like carrots, right? But I haven't actually opened it up for responses, right? So again, we're going to close this one because it's there. So now, all right, we got all set up. It's published. It's ready to go. So let's go ahead and click responses. And we need to be able to actually get the responses for this, right? So we have this setting. Okay, it's accepting responses. So that should have actually worked. Again, Google changes stuff all the time, so this is something where you might just need to kind of click around a little bit. This has even changed since the last, as I mentioned, last time I did it. So I'm gonna try this one more time. And if not, I might have to like refresh something. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, so again, you used to be able to do this in preview mode. You cannot, again, every time they change it. So simple solution. I'm just gonna go ahead and go through these real quick, and then we'll do a little bit of testing, get some responses. So you saw what preview did, the eyeball. You can change the color scheme, and all it does is you can see it changes the color scheme, and you can change the fonts and stuff. So not a whole lot you can do there, but you know there's some different things you can do based on what you're trying to do, right? Undo, redo, of course, you know, Control Z and so forth. You're probably not going to have this, depending on, but there are some add-ons. This one's not even useful because they've built that in. And then there's copy responder link, which I'm going to use in a second, and then share. Now, share allows you to add collaborators, and that's going to be important in a second. The delineation between that, and then you go down here, and we can make a copy, move it to the trash. Right, embed it to HTML. And remember, there's some of the stuff you might see it on the test of what you can and cannot do with it. So embed HTML allows you to actually put it onto the web and into a web page. Right, so if you know how to do that, you can do it. App scripts, probably need to worry about that. It's super advanced where you actually write code for it, which is really how you build these add-ons, is through doing that. But that, again, mostly what you'll probably see here is to unpublish it. You might embed it into HTML. You might print it, but generally you don't go over to this one as much. Mostly what you're going to use is the preview, and then copy responder link, as I already said. If you want to make it shorter, you click on that, copy it, and then when I paste that, here we go. Now this is live. This is just like I gave it to anyone, so this one will work. So I'll type in the stuff, pick a movie, pick the food I like, and then you can see submits there. And right now it allows me to submit more. I'm not going to. Well, let's do a couple actually. You know, I'll pick 2 because we'll see a little bit of data as we go through this. All the C's. Okay, so now you can see we have 2 responses. So let's click on that. You can see what I mean, like 50-50. If you had a bunch of movies, and this pie is going to look like just little slivers, which is why by narrowing it down, you're only going to ever have 3 slivers. Now you might have a small sliver, but at the end of the day, you're only going to have max 3 slivers with how I built this. And you kind of see how the bar chart works as well. Because if you gave them open-ended, they could type in any food. You're going to have all these different bars with different foods. So that helps. If you want to be able to do more stuff and build your own graphs, you can link it to Sheets. It will automatically create a sheet in the actual building. I'm not going to worry about that for now. And then finally, let's go ahead and turn this into a quiz. So we'll go to settings, and we'll talk about some things good for quizzes, some things are good for surveys. So I mean, it's really simple. I mean, a little common sense, make this a quiz, turn it on. Now, there's some things you want to do. If you want to let them have the grade right away, that it is. If you want to let them see the missed questions, correct answers, point values. And again, most of the quizzes I do is just for, seeing how you're doing. So yeah, I want them to see all that stuff. Default point, I like keeping it nice and simple. So 1 point. And we'll kind of show you how all that looks back on questions. Responses, and these are important, especially for a quiz. We do want to make sure they are who they are. We can send it if this is a quiz. I don't want to send it, but this might be good for surveys, right? And again, you might also, even for a survey, I don't want people to just spam my survey, but definitely for a quiz, I only want them to take it once, right? And I don't want them to change it. Maybe for a survey, you'll allow them to change it until you close it, but again, these are things, depending on what you want to do, all right? For a quiz, not good. For a survey, you might turn this on. For a quiz, again, you probably want them to take it once. You want to make sure they're signed in, verified, and then they'll go. Don't use presentation mode anymore, but there are some options that you can do if you use the presentation mode. Okay, so with that, all right, if you don't want it a quiz, you can turn that off, and then kind of ignore all that if you're just making a survey. But again, the responses, if you're doing a survey, might be useful for you as well. So let's go to questions. Now, you'll notice something new. All right, when you click on an actual question, you will see answer key. Now I'm going to show you a couple things here. Number one, it's worth 1 point. This is their name, right? And they can't get it right. They can't, there's nothing they can type. Now you can go in there and again, type every single possible name in the world, which is silly, or you just don't make it worth any points, right? It's still a question, 0 points, and 1 factor grade. You'll probably tell them they got it wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's worth 0 points. So once you have that done, and we can then move on to the next one. And you'll see nothing's marked correct. Answer key is 1 point. So to select the correct one, let's go ahead and say movie 3 is the correct one. It's worth 1 point. You can adjust as needed. Done. Now when you're actually there, and there's something to point out, when you're not on the question, it doesn't show you what's right. When you click on the question, it'll show you which one's right. So now this one, I haven't marked what's right, so nothing's marked. So I need to go to answer key. Let's say cake, candy, and pizza, but not carrots. Would like carrot cake, but not carrots, right? So again, 1 point, done, and there you can see all of them. Don't see this one until you click on it. All right, so we should have enough information to create just about any survey you want, have it look any way you want. So we've done a lot of this stuff on building. It's up to you how you're going to use it. Again, there's going to be a project later where you'll use this to make a quiz, and I've shown you everything you need to do. So the last thing I am going to do is go ahead and take it as a quiz, just so you can see it. So again, get the URL, and this is something you can email to everyone, whatever you need to do. And now it's a quiz. Also, remember, see, make sure to click my email. Boom. Check they can allow it. This will also make sure that I'm only allowed to take it once. I remember the answer was 3, movie 3, and then let's get this one wrong. Show us do this way. This way, so it's a little different. We'll see that for the other quiz part of that, and we'll click submit. You can view your score. So again, me had no points, so it didn't matter. And then this one was right, but this one was wrong. Now, as you see, it doesn't give you partial points, but you're probably not going to use it for a quiz too much. But you can see how it works, right? So it's going to close that one, close that one, close that one, and then we're back to this one. So there's 3 responses now. You can see how this works. All right, so question 1, and so on, scores. One person got 2 right, one person got 1 right. And you can kind of go through all the different stats, right? So this shows you all the questions that were answered, movie 1, movie 2, movie 3, and then how many times candy was selected, 3 times. Again, there's only 3 responses, so 3 of these, 2, 2, and 2. Each of the movies were selected once, and so on. And if you, with more data, you can obviously get better graphs and kind of see, oh, my score of my students is a 67 or whatever like that. But that's it, right? The only last thing I'm going to go over real quick is over here. This is where you can add other people, all right? So if you needed to build this as a group, you would add them, and that would put them here. Otherwise, again, if you are sending out that link, the responder link, if you send that to someone, assuming that they're going to be able to work on it with you, that link only allows them to take it, right? I already showed that. I've copied it a couple times. It's the same one as this link up here. So if you want to share it with someone, you need to add that to them, and then it'll show up in their shared files in Google Drives, right? The shared with me files in Google Drive. So again, if you ever need to add a collaborator, that is where you do it. You have to actually type it in with that. Otherwise, that's how it works. All right. So again, click done. We've gone over all the different things. How do you add questions? How do you add questions? How do you modify questions? What does responses do? What settings can you change? What you might use to change? What does preview do? And then kind of how do you share it? With that, that's all I have. I just wanted to show you updated of how Google Forms works. Thank you. Have a great day.